Committee, June 2nd, 2014, the notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Asbury Park Press, the Star Ledger, the Independent, and the Two River Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building and filing with the Township Clerk on January 4th, 2014. Committeeman Fiore.
Yes, here.
Committeeman Massell.
Here.
Committeeman Sharpenberger.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sedambrino.
Here.
Mayor Murray. Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troops serving worldwide, defending our freedoms, constitutions, and way of life. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the Township Committee to adopt a consent agenda, which would include resolutions 14-155 through 14-162. Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeeman Sharpenberger.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sedambrino.
Yes.
Mayor Murray. Yes. Motion carries to adopt consent agenda. This time we have resolution 14-154, a resolution authorizing payment of bills June 2nd, 2014.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Massell.
Yes.
Committeeman Sharpenberger.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sedambrino.
Yes.
Mayor Murray. Yes. Motion carries to adopt resolution 14-154. Our agenda items for June 16th will include approval of minutes for February and March 2014 meetings. We'll have a consent agenda for resolutions, bingo and raffle applications, and volunteer firefighter applications. Tonight's agenda for discussion, we have Johnson Gill Annex roof replacement.
I just want to bring everybody's attention, the Johnson Gill roof replacement has been advertised. The bid opening, I think, is June 24th. So it'll be awarded, hopefully, at the workshop meeting in July. And since we'll have no point to discuss that, I figured I'd bring it up now at this meeting. So
How big of a project of replacement are you looking at?
it's actually, they're capping the roof that's there. They're not tearing off the old roof. They're putting on a new system on top of it. Winter leaks, so
It's leaking now.
it's, leaks now, yes.
So your hands
Yeah, sometimes.
What's the budget on the project?
Budget, I can get you the budget, exactly what it is. It's,
Just the engineer's budget?
the estimate was around 160,000, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the affordable housing amendment for retail restrictions.
Yeah, I just wanted to summarize the committee's, we've had this discussion and you actually passed this resolution on your consent agenda, but just for everyone's understanding. What we've done is amended the rules for the resale of affordable housing units. And the reason we did this is what we started to find in the past year or two that people who have purchased affordable housing units find it nearly impossible to find buyers for their units. They keep them on the market for many, many months and are just unable to find buyers, largely because the lending restrictions or lending rules have become very strict, very tight. So finding qualified buyers who are also low and moderate income households has become really, really difficult. And so what's happened is that property owners who in good faith bought an affordable housing unit are really stuck with them and are unable to sell them. So we worked with the state, the Department of Community Affairs, and they said we could modify the program so that after a period of time, if people are unable to sell the units, they can sell them to someone who doesn't meet the income criteria. However, our concern had been all along, if we did that, would we risk losing credit for the units, credit we worked hard to get. What's left of the COA staff at DCA basically said as long as the restrictions remain attached to the units, you're just not having the restriction apply to the new buyer, you can still keep credit for the units. So that's really what this...
The restriction and the affordability controls, so the restricted resale price and everything would still apply. It's just that when we exhaust our entire lottery, we just had one, for example, where we went through nearly 200 people in the lottery, and the only eligible person that could actually acquire a mortgage and still meet the regional income requirements didn't want to buy the unit. So it's been sitting, one particular unit's been sitting for over a year. The person hasn't lived there and they've been paying the.
And the thing that makes it extra difficult is a lot of the complexes that have these units in them won't allow, their bylaws, deed restrictions, won't allow the rental of the units while they're trying to find a buyer. So they're really stuck. They're actually having to actually hold on to the unit, not even be able to cover their costs by getting a tenant in there.
Aside from all that, always working great.
And these are units, these are not units, the township does not own these units. These are units owned by
No,
individuals.
but there have been a couple of cases in the past where we did buy them,
Or they're
because
going
the
into
people were in such a
foreclosure,
bind,
yeah, when
and
they're
then we
going
sold
into
them. We don't want to have to keep
foreclosure,
doing that, you know, it's just.
But then we have to carry them until they can sell, and then we end up having to lower the prices and affordable housing trust fund monies, but, you know, from developers, but it's still money that can be used for development, rehabilitation, affordable housing in different places, so you don't want to have to keep taking losses on units to sell them.
The proposed ordinance is specific with regard to unit owners then.
Yes, it doesn't apply to renters, it simply applies
They're
to
just for sale units.
for sale units only. And the way we've crafted this is that we initially had talked, we had one that's really in a deep bind right now, and it's at least a year, almost a year that they're trying to sell their unit. But the way we crafted the ordinance is that it sets some criteria up, so we're not going to have to come back each time this happens. This is now a procedure that will be, or a policy that will be in place, so that anyone who runs into that situation, if they go through a certain period of time where they can't resell the unit, we have the flexibility now of letting them go this route. So it should be a big help to the people who bought these units. And we have a lot more than you'd think around town.
This should hopefully get better in the next year. Reportedly, they are loosening some of the mortgage standards now, but it's still difficult with these units because you have to remember they have to appraise. They have deed restrictions on them, so their value is not as much as the market might command necessarily, and the individuals that have to meet the income limits have enough for a down payment and be eligible, be eligible for a mortgage, and that's the problem. So.
I can just add to that, the county's first-time homebuyer program had a serious issue with funding for about 6 to 8 months, and that's now been funded again. So that should provide potential buyers with some resources. Typically, though, a homeowner needs to, or a buyer has to have at least 5% down on the purchase price, and that can be challenging for a first-time home buyer. So, but I agree, it is going to get a little bit easier, hopefully within the next 6 months or so.
Well, and one of the things that happened in many of these projects are, FHA funded projects. One of them, the FHA qualification expired, and so they had to have a 20% down payment to buy the units. Someone who's low and moderate income to begin with is not going to have 20% to put down on even an inexpensive unit. But so and that compounded the problem for some people trying to resell their units. It made it virtually impossible to do. So.
One other question. And there's nothing, in reading this, there's nothing in this proposed ordinance that requires any type of reversion back to the municipality if it can't be.
The deed restrictions, so if somebody sells, the deed restrictions themselves, the recorded restrictions, have I don't recall it was called a reversion, but a right of first refusal, I guess is an accurate way to portray, so that if that the township would have the opportunity to purchase the unit if it was going out.
Okay, so I'll be clear. I don't want to own the unit as a township if it can't be sold.
Yeah, this minimizes the likelihood of that happening.
The only time we usually acquire them is if they're going into foreclosure, where the bank might try to extinguish the deed restrictions to sell the unit if it was over what happened a lot for God knows what reasons. In the last 10 years, banks were over mortgaging units that had restricted prices. I've gone through getting a mortgage. I don't know how it ever happened because they certainly would never let me get away with it. and somehow, though, some of these units, you'll see a unit that's at a de-restricted or restricted price of $110,000 out of $250,000 mortgage on it, where they just kept out taking lines of credit and adding on top of their second mortgage and things. and then they end up going into foreclosure, and then we don't want to, because of some misdeed of some banker or something years ago, we don't want to lose the credits. That's usually the only circumstance where we typically would acquire these units. But we don't, there's no automatic, or nothing goes automatically.
Thank you.
Our next item on tonight's agenda, we have the redevelopment investigation reauthorization.
I could provide some quick background on this. Back in 2009, the Township Committee authorized the Planning Board to initiate a redevelopment investigation of roughly 25 properties in North Middletown along Port Monmouth Road near Ocean Avenue. And we have initiated that redevelopment investigation in the ensuing years. Obviously, we've had some changed circumstances with flood hazard designations in the area, Superstorm Sandy. And we did complete a draft investigation of a small section of the study area, specifically at the intersection of Ocean Avenue. What I'd like the committee to consider is revising that resolution, expressing a commitment to the planning board that there would be a need to continue that redevelopment investigation, but really just to focus on about 3 or 4 properties so that we don't include too many properties and make this an unpredictable process and incorporate a lot of residential properties and create unnecessary concern in the neighborhood. I'd really like to focus on 1 or 2 properties, one of which is showing and exhibiting severe dilapidation at this point and is in danger of collapse, frankly. So I would like to expedite that as much as possible. The redevelopment subcommittee of the planning board convened a couple of weeks ago and discussed this, and we thought it was the best idea to move forward and just specify 3 properties rather than include the entire area at this stage.
So the committee will need to take an action to
Yes.
reauthorize.
The planning
Yeah,
board.
and it's mainly because there's been a time lag as well. It makes sense to revisit it so that there's no issue with the property owner saying that it's been 5 years, why hasn't anything been done? Well, now we can revisit that and take some of the investigation that we've completed and move forward with the hearing at the planning board level.
Next item, we have the cleaning service.
Yes, I want to look at the possibility of going out to bid the janitorial services for township buildings. Currently, we're using the state contract firm for cleaning the buildings, and they've had some staffing issues lately that might eventually affect the pricing as we move ahead. And in general, I'd like to see how that compares to the open market if we go to bid. So I'm looking maybe in July, put a bid package together and send it back out again for new pricing.
This is to replace our current contract with no expansion?
Right, just to replace the current
I'm
contract.
saying no expansion services, same services.
Same services,
Here, next item is the charging stations at parking lot number 1.
and again, I just wanted to kick off this conversation about charging stations for Tesla's around. Everyone's pretty much familiar with the electric vehicle charging stations that are popping up everywhere around the country, really. There are actually more of them, but there are a lot local. Monmouth University has a charging station, Brookdale, the Neptune campus, some of the middle schools. Some car dealerships have charging stations for fueling electric vehicles, charging electric vehicles. The idea came up at some point about putting these stations, maybe a couple at the train station, so commuters could drive their electric cars to the train and then charge it, top it off while they're working. I've done some preliminary searching for prices. The units themselves are about $5,000 each, and then installation is probably about $10,000 for 1 or more units. One of the pictures here has a kiosk with a solar panel roof, which would contribute to the charging, but it wouldn't be the sole source of the electricity.
And is there a fee to use this?
There is a fee, right? There's a per kilowatt fee. That would the idea is to cover, obviously, more than the electricity that would be charged for.
So theoretically, we could get that. initial investment back? or something?
You could, it's a, the rate of return's not very high, but, again, the idea is, part of the idea is to attract people to, to use these cars, to use the lot, with the possibility of, maybe New Jersey Transit contributing to this, because it'll increase ridership.
Back up a half second.
Yeah.
So there's a capital expenditure on our potential here for these charging stations. And there is not a revenue generation potential or a slow return on equity for these charging stations for us to recover that capital to put these out. Doesn't
Right.
seem to make any sense to me.
Just,
Well,
what's slow?
well, that's what, again, we're kicking off the conversation, we'll look into the actual return rates and see how that comes out.
I would suggest what we can do is, since we're bronze still in sustainable Jersey, which is a pretty high level, we probably have a good chance of getting a grant in their next round for this project. This is a pretty small project, just like Montclair did.
Grants for this too.
Yeah. I think BPU has a commitment of funds that they'll put towards the project. I don't think they cover the whole cost of it. But I wouldn't suggest we pay for it. I would suggest we look for grant opportunity to cover the cost.
I wonder if any of the car companies, Tesla, I guess is the most prominent one these days, have any programs where they would help offset some of this. Maybe they would match a grant from somewhere else.
Unless it's zero revenue to us, which we can make the argument that at a zero revenue gain that we want to help the environment with electric cars if we deem that to be environmentally conscious. My view is if it's not at least a break even in a relatively short period of time before a charging station becomes obsolete, grant notwithstanding, I don't think we should really be spending too much time potentially investigating this service when I think we have plenty of other things that we can investigate. I mean, I don't mind looking and talking to our grant writers in so much, in fact, if there's a grant that, similar to the natural gas station at DPW, which will have impact, I think, in savings using natural gas versus diesel. But, I mean, it's a nice to do, and I get that, but unless your return on equity is within 3 years, this charging station will probably be about obsolete before you get your return on equity with technological advances that are happening, I'm sure, in that industry. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't want you to spend a heck of a lot of time, is what I'm saying, in a very roundabout way,
I'll
very nice
spend
way.
the minimum amount of time seeing what the rate of return is on this and versus the expense of setting something like this up.
Great.
Ted and I can look into the photos that were distributed around. They were from Beaverton, Oregon, and a lot of that may have been corporate sponsorship and installed at
I thought
some
you were going
else's
to tell me that
expense.
those are from the Netherlands.
No, although some people might think it's the
Well,
same
the
thing.
other is on their kiosks, they also sell advertising space too.
Right.
Yes,
That helps, I'm sure, offset the.
and that's associated with the farmer's market, so there's a lot more going on that particular property, but there may be opportunities there.
Me and Todd.
We have removal of wood mulch.
This is me again. We have run an enormous amount of brush this brush season, and it's been ground and it's at DPW. So we're going to be in the position now to put it out to get quotes to remove it. We were fortunate last time we were able to get paid for the material we had. This time around, I don't think we're going to be so lucky because we have so much area, 15,000 cubic yards.
I'm doing my part as quick as I can.
Well, we did discuss the option of possibly, some towns have a delivery service where DPW will deliver mulch to residents and businesses for a fee. So we're going to look into that option possibly and see if that is something we want to do.
It's not gonna get rid of all.
No, it's certainly not, but it wouldn't make a dent really what we have, but
You see my backyard?
we've got a lot.
We've been over to DPW lately.
It's a mountain.
Well, we still give it away free,
We give it away free.
but it's not making a dent.
No, it's 15,000 yards, it's a huge pile. And actually, we have to get rid of it environmentally, it has to be removed.
Yeah.
So we'll have quotes for
No
that.
landscapers are interested.
Landscapers, they do come take it, yeah. Parkway takes some, the
It's
Turnpike.
still not, in other words,
There's not enough takers.
Didn't we sell it a couple years ago to landscapers?
We've sold it mostly in the past, we've sold it.
No one's interested.
The market's flooded. And this really is still,
We're not the only ones who have extra.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure they do.
I still believe this is brush from Sandy that people are getting rid of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We are, so it's much higher than, we haven't had a normal year in many years in terms of brush, but we're much higher than the last normal year, which was probably 2009.
Something I will add is that our ordinance seems to be working. I mean, you still have a few residents who either don't get the notification of their zone or anticipate that you're going to come back a second time, or just disregard the fact that you've already been down the street, which I think the GPS units will help
Yes.
take a lot of that off the table. But I think we are seeing, to the credit of that ordinance, which was one we debated, pretty good compliance, just looking at the cleanliness.
It's
of the
amazing how many
streets.
people call or email wanting us to enforce it on their neighbors. You get a lot of that, just got one today.
Right? We get a lot of these calls.
Are you gonna do a cost analysis of having it removed at first, paying, having folks pay for it delivered?
Yeah, the delivery would be something, we would obviously charge enough to cover our expenses.
Yeah.
But even if every resident in town really wanted some, it would be hard to get rid of what we have there.
Really?
So much. And it can't stay there for, 6 months waiting,
No.
because it's a fire hazard, it's an environmental hazard, and so we have to get somebody to get rid of the bulk of it. We'll have a pile there for residents to use and still to deliver to residents. But the pile we have now far exceeds what would be, meet the public demand.
We have to-
And we'll have more.
We
have
have
more
to take care of
brush.
it pretty quickly. You can't let it sit too long. If you remember last year after Sandy, some of the wood chip piles at the compost facility in Belford did start to burn. You can't have that happening at DPW, next to our facility and the Navy Road.
The towns would want it.
And with the natural gas.
The towns would want it.
The other towns are taking it, West Island is taking some.
What's that
It's just the towns like out west where there's no, the roads that we do.
Everyone has an excess of it, yeah. The market is really loaded.
You know what, speaking of compliance, and I guess we can finish with this. I've noticed, and a lot of neighbors are saying, hey, so-and-so's putting out cardboard with the regular garbage. And very visible, it's not like they're tucking it under the garbage. I don't know, if there's a way to, sort of remind everybody that this is the law, it's not just optional? And it costs the town a lot of money when it's, you don't comply with anything. Because I think a reminder, either for new residents or, or forget.
We will be sending out a postcard in July, fall leaf collection. And
Put a reminder.
put a reminder on that, we usually do.
Yeah, but can trash removal companies leave it if they see cardboard? Or do they do that?
They usually do, they're supposed to do that. At the beginning of the contract, they did it.
But half the town is private contract, and those people are not going to force that, lose the contract of private individuals.
Our contractors have been very good at that, not taking the recyclables.
So I think they understood how much it costs the town. Maybe
It's a
they
tough
think
one,
they
it's the contractor, the garbage district, or the recycling contractor, really good about it, but then people get mad about that. I just put a couple of, boxes in with my trash, and they left them on the sidewalk. Well, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But people don't like it,
At what point do you let people slide?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
Well, they don't, the contractor's been really good. I mean, he's been badgered by some people about not taking, people come running out of their house, and they won't
Yeah.
take it. They've really been good.
We could send reminders to some of the other firms that collect for private individuals and have them reiterate to them that they're not supposed to take that.
Do we have any, speaking of which, do we have any permit process or oversight of the private carriers that come into the town? Do any other towns have that process at all? Because, there's no less than 8 vendors, I think, that come in that don't, do they need a permit to operate within the township?
Not from, it's a regulated industry by the DEP. It actually is considered a public utility, actually, so it's, you have almost no jurisdiction over those private haulers. We can enforce our ordinances, but that's about it. They are, I had this issue with the pickup times and
Well, then can we?
before where there's tons of lawsuits go to the Supreme Court on
Can
it.
then the township enact ordinances in the private districts as to days of the week that they can be picked up? Because now you even have that scat.
No, there's cases that go.
Just ask.
I know, I dealt with this exact issue with respect to the times and days, and it's all subject to the DEP. It's all governed by DEP when it comes to the trash hauling business. Unless it's our contract, there's no real effective way for us to enforce it. There are some parameters that the courts have held are reasonable restrictions. Yeah, I think before 6, you can restrict from 6 a.m. before 6 a.m. You can restrict people, I believe it is, for residential pickups, things of that nature that have been litigated before. But the days, I don't think they regulate.
And the monitoring of the recyclables mixed in with the trash really is supposed to be done by the facility that accepts the garbage. So if they see a lot of recyclables mixed in, they're supposed to notify or fine the collector that he's bringing too much in. I'm not sure to what extent that's done anymore.
It's just when you see it sitting on top, you think they're not trying to sneak it.
Right.
in,
Blatant.
You just don't.
Do we have a process for contacting new residents? I mean, about our recycling and other,
We were just actually talking about that, one of the things the town did many years ago and kind of got away from it was a new resident package of materials. And we were just talking about reinstituting that, like the newsletters and historical information and some of the things like about the way our recycling zones work and our leaf and brush collection regulations. So there's not an official way to do it now, but I think we should put one into place that everyone when they move in.
who sells has to get a C of O.
Yeah.
I mean, have some sort of system where you give it to the realtor or whoever's getting the C of O, transfer, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's ways to do it.
yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's valuable.
Introduction to the website, introduction to the,
Yeah. We'll put together a packet, send it to the committee and see how we do it, because we still have parts of it in place. I think we should start making that a policy again to provide those to the residents.
I'm just gonna have one more thing at the end, discussion. We've been trying for a while to get a mid-block crosswalk at the Art Center. We've been having our meetings with the county quarterly, Tony and I. So I received from their traffic expert, traffic engineer there, the approval to put the crosswalk in. The figure in front of you has 2 crosswalks. There were options of where we should put them. She's suggesting, and the better location is the southerly on the bottom of the page, near the door. She granted the county's blessing for that location, that crosswalk. So there's a resolution on here. I'll ask Brian to look at that, or an ordinance actually, for the mid-block crosswalks. They gave me a template for that. There are some physical improvements that are going to have to be made, the curb cuts at this location. So I've asked them to include that on the capital program for this year. So once the ordinance is adopted, the county can go through the approval process and we can get that done.
It is absolutely a necessity. I mean, I can tell you that today, I'm parked in the visitor lot, and it is, you take your life in your own hands trying to cross that. And the crosswalk, as it stands now, is well too far past the lot to make any
And no one
practical
uses that.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make any practical sense when you park in the first 3 rows and you're walking, 14 rows further to the end of the block to get it. It doesn't make any sense.
Would it ever make sense to do both?
There has to be a certain distance from an intersection, and the one on the top of the page is too close to that intersection at Orchard Street.
Yeah,
So
Orchard
they
Street's
want, and they also can't have too many on location for safety reasons.
Can't stop, start.
Yeah.
You know what, that's where everybody crosses now.
Right,
Yeah.
that's when the door is there, the parking lot is there.
This is long overdue.
It's a good accomplishment, because initially they were not going for this at all. So.
Yeah.
They've acquiesced.
We do have another addition for direct deposit policy.
Yeah, so just one thing we added, and I'm sure Colleen probably had a few comments on this as well. She was here tonight, but we've had a number of discussions regarding this. You may recall last year, the state passed a new statute requiring direct deposit for state employees, and effective July 1, 2014, making it an option for local governing bodies and authorities and so forth to institute as a policy. I believe, Colleen, we're here tonight, I think it's also the administrator's recommendation. This is something the township should look into implementing. While we can do it immediately in July 1 if we wanted to, I think the recommendation would be to institute this policy sometime this fall at the turnover of one of the quarters for payroll purposes, to require direct deposit and save having to do postage for pay stubs and so forth. Other component of this law I should add is that even if individuals do direct deposit under this law, they would no longer be mailed pay stubs and things. They would have to log into some sort of web portal that Colleen's looking into with ADP, who is our current payroll provider, where you log in and get your pay stubs and so forth, so it saves on the postage, even if they aren't getting a physical check, just for the pay stubs and things like that, if they don't get it at the place of employment. So, and they would also make, also for the purposes of W-2s and things like that, they would be logging into the portal to retrieve a W-2, and so this would be township-wide. We're discussing what if any exceptions there should be in formulating an ordinance to institute this policy. One of the things would probably be for some of the more short-term seasonal employees, not crossing guards who are longer-term seasonal employees, but the summer people and employees and things like that. So, but we're still sorting through what would be most practical and cost-efficient to institute this policy, and anticipate coming forward with a form of ordinance in the near future to do so, which is an option of the governing body after July 1.
Prior to the legislation having negotiated.
Yeah.
It was possible to get it done.
Yeah, it's explicitly excluded from contractual negotiations under the law.
There was one more thing I wanted to add. I didn't do this beforehand, I apologize, it just came up now. There's a great program out there, and I've mentioned it to you, and we talked about it, and it's been brought up before. It's called the Street of the Week program. Bloomingdale, New Jersey has this program where people, the residents of the township will nominate an area of their township, usually a street, for targeted enforcement and code enforcement as well. And I feel like this is something we can take for Middletown and kind of make it our own, because Bloomfield's a much smaller town than Middletown. I'm sorry, I apologize. Bloomingdale. They only have 7,600 residents, if I'm not mistaken, and obviously we have much more than that. So I think there's ways that we can probably make the program our own, have residents nominate certain streets, be able to get out there and really interact with the residents from a code enforcement perspective, from traffic perspective, township committee perspective, administrative perspective, and that's something I'd like to bring up. I think it bears worth looking into and exploring and maybe translating it and making it our own. So just wanted to bring that up.
I agree, Mayor. I think it's a program I read about in the League of Municipalities and heard about at the League of Municipalities Convention. I think it's a program that would help from a police community relations perspective. At first, I think the Township Committee would probably nominate a few streets. I mean, obviously, we have many roads. We have, when we go through this from a snow plowing perspective, so you have your major roads that, I think we enforce pretty well, and then you have your, what do we call them, the arterial roads and the secondary roads, and then collector roads, and then you get all the way down to cul-de-sac roads. So I'm not sure, cul-de-sac roads make a heck of a lot of sense, but there's definitely roads that are connectors and collector streets that could be nestled into a different neighborhood, and that from whether it's speeding, and I know your office and anyone who served as mayor will hear about speeding or code enforcement, or if there's a park in a neighborhood, or different issues. So from a police, from a DPW, from an administration perspective, I think with our new app, it helps to engage more participation with our residents and our website, which we strive for. So obviously more work to be done, but we can come up with criteria for nominating the streets. The committee could approve streets on an ongoing basis, a couple weeks in advance, and then we can notify the residents of that street that the street has been nominated from X one, from July 1st to July 8th, where, we're going to be, you're going to see it targeted, more police presence, we kind of encourage you to interact with, police that might be, on the street or, while they're not doing their job, of course, in terms of like pulling somebody over. But, that kind of, I know we have a traffic department and we have, plenty of resources.
It's a good way to reach out to the community and be able to put faces.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a street of the month, I don't know. If a week is a little too much because we have a couple more streets
we have
that
a lot more
Bloomingdale, maybe it's a street of the month, so we'll
Yeah.
figure it out. Thank you, I think it's a great idea.
Good idea.
Okay. We have township committee comments?
Okay, so who wants to go first today? I'm gonna go with Mr. Massell.
Not much this week, Mayor, just the Memorial Day Parade, I'll just mention briefly, it was just a phenomenal turnout, a great way to honor our fallen soldiers. Biggest turnout I've seen in 6 years. March 9th last week, which was great.
I'm gonna go with Deputy Mayor.
I'm nothing this evening, Mayor.
I'm gonna go with Tony Fiore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo the comments of my colleague, Mr. Massell. Great day, perfect weather, and a great parade. And just a thank you to not only the veterans, but also the American Legion for, once again, Tom Garrettson and that crew. As I call Mr. Alonzo, who I think is celebrated in person on the parade day. Just a tremendous job organizing and getting everything there to pay proper respects to our current and former veterans. So I'll save the rest of my comments for 2 weeks from now, Mayor. Thank you.
Dr. Sharpenberg.
Yeah, I'll just echo that the Memorial Day Parade, in all the years I've been doing it, I don't think there was that big a crowd along the curbs every step of the way. And I think part of the parade only got lost once, right?
Just
Once
maybe
this year,
one
only
wrong
once.
turn.
one wrong
So
turn.
it was that's a success. So it was great, and the American Legion always does a great job. There were a couple of World War II vets there, so it's always good to see them. And that's it. Let's hope for a repeat next year.
And I will say, I think every year we march, there were more and more people every year, and it's just such a wonderful tribute to all the veterans, and everyone just comes out as a community. It's a wonderful experience. The one thing I did want to mention was I was able to go with our administrator last week to a pre-construction meeting for the Port Monmouth Flood Control Project. So that is also another bit of reassuring news. So we know that's in motion at last. The one other thing I wanted to mention was the shout out to the military at Thorne, which Dr. Scharfenberg and I had both attended. The kids and the staff over there just did such a tremendous job rededicating the monument to the Battle of the Bulge. The students from all of the middle schools in town came together and they performed a USO show for the vets. It was, again, very wonderful tribute, very fitting, fantastic turnout. There had to be over 100 people there. And again, the parade was fantastic, the Memorial Day Parade. And just for our 350 parade, I think we have several hundred marchers already signed up. So we're gearing up for our own fantastic parade at the end of the month. And with that, I think we're going to open to public comments. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak? Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak, I move to...
She didn't hear you, I don't. Yeah, please.
Yeah, yes.
Do you have to, there's any speakers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I raised my hand.
Yeah, okay.
Go right ahead,
Okay.
Ms. Shirley. Yes,
Mr.
of
Mayor.
course.
It's Carolyn Schwagel, Hamilton Avenue in Leonardo. First, I just, as Chair Emeritus, we want to bring greetings from the Monmouth County Human Relations Commission. We met today. And just thought it would be a good idea to let you guys know or remind you that we do exist and we can fill in the pieces of what is needed. We're looking at other ways of reaching out and coordinating more closely with the townships. And one of the biggest things, Freeholder Curley's on our committee, and he was there today, and he said the biggest things, he gets 4 or 5 calls a day about housing and food, hunger. So that seems to be, you know, where it's at right now. The other thing is, I'd like to ask, if you could, our attorney, how to spell privilege? Do you know how to spell privilege? It's one of the demon.
Excuse me, I'm like a, didn't I?
What, I don't, why are you asking that?
This rhetorical question.
Yeah,
This
is that a rhetorical
nonsense.
One of those, it fits. I'd just like to back to one of the previous issues, Hyman versus the City of Jersey City, which our lawyer probably knows about. But it's just something I was reading on the internet, and it was a judge's decision in that case. And he said, the generalized designation by the custodian failed to provide, this is Oprah, a description of the nature of the withheld documents in a manner that, without revealing information itself, privileged of course, or protected, would enable the plaintiff to assess the applicability of the privilege, it states. That was his opinion. And it says, this is from Legal Pages, this case highlights public bodies seeking to rely on the attorney-client privilege. The exception when withholding records requested under Oprah cannot simply state the privilege or exception without more. Although the public body, of course, is not required to reveal any confidential information and must still provide an explanation that enables others to assess the applicability of the privilege or protection. So just anything else that would relate to, because as I say, we have had some cases here where all it says is attorney-client privilege.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, Leo.
I'd like to submit an article that I
You just-
found as a document.
Just for the record, name and address.
Leo Christoffoli, Middletown. There's an article I got today from the Investors Business Daily, page A16, Monday, June 2nd, 2014, about 2 states, Utah 4 years ago and Oklahoma this year, are going to 401k type systems of meeting pensions in order to stop the bleeding of money from the taxpayers because of unfunded pensions. I'd like to submit this one copy to Mayor Murray so that she can read it and deem whether it should be copied to the rest of the committee and the lawyer and Heidi Brunt and whomever else to see if you need to or want to craft a resolution to get the ball rolling out of the Jewel Township of Monmouth County. I love that word, Jewel, which is Middletown, and send the possible resolution up to the state assembly and the Senate and the governor and whatnot. I'll let it go at that. I may bring it up later in the next meeting. Regarding the business about putting electric chargers at the any train station, let alone one, that seems to me to fly ahead of the free enterprise system, where the people would be happy to charge for a cost in the private sector, and I'm sure a lot of people would be happy to charge their electric cars at the home. And if you do go to a electric charging stations at one and all the train stops in Middletown, there should be a I guess you could use a plastic card for the customer using such a charge to pay what you ever deem appropriate to recover the money of establishing the structure, superstructure, and maintaining it, and having all expenses and the operating expenses paid for. I would side with Mr. Fiore in this self-paying, have a self-paying system that the user bears the cost and don't make everybody else pay for it, which is I hear is, well, everybody's paying for it. I hear from one of the CFOs that I have talked to in the past. Everybody, and everybody isn't paying for it. I just want, and thirdly and lastly was this business about the affordable housing amendment for resale restrictions. Who bears the encumbrance of for the inability to sell the house? Who owns it? Is it the bank? Is it the township committee? Is it the occupant of the...
The current owner would continue to own it until they're able to sell
So
it.
why does the, I'm ignorant, so I'm not trying to be cute with my question, fake ignorance. Why does the township have to step in with an amendment? And what would the amendment do? What would it accomplish?
Right now, the rules require that it be sold to somebody within a limited income range, very limited, okay? And so what they're finding is it's very hard to find somebody within that limited income range. So they're stuck making it impossible to sell the unit, really through no fault of their own, because they have a deed restriction on the property that they bought, and they probably bought it at a time when it could have easily been resold. Nowadays, it's not so easy to resell them. So all this change does is eliminates that restriction on the income of the person who buys it. All the other restrictions that would apply to affordable housing units stay in place, but the buyer restriction has been lifted essentially. So it just gives a wider pool.
Would the change in the sales price so that it can sell to an actual buyer, would the price of the house would be changed?
They can, there's a cap on the top that they can go lower if they choose to.
Can they go higher?
No, they can't go beyond the cap.
So you would, the amendment is to lower the...
No, but all right. The amendment will allow, once we have a lottery of about 200 people in it, okay? So if a unit comes for sale in the township, we're the affordable housing administrators for all the affordable housing units, even if we don't own them. So nobody realizes how much we have to be in that real estate business to administer these programs. And so what happens is somebody says, okay, I want to sell my unit. They notify the township, they say, I want to sell my unit, can you give me the names of eligible individuals who are in the lottery? Then Jason's office or others go through that list and say, well, one who's interested, and then once they're interested, then they have to submit financial information and so forth to determine their eligibility based on their income level for the region that we're in. So this affects the eligibility of the individuals who can buy the unit. It doesn't affect the price of the unit. So it loosens up. So once we determine that we've gone through the whole lottery and there's nobody either interested or eligible in that lottery that we have a list of over in the planning office, once that determination is made, nobody's interested or eligible to purchase the unit, then we can go out to a wider pool and advertise to a wider pool through what's known as a marketing process. And these are all processes and procedures spelled out in the code rules ad nauseam.
Okay, thanks guys. Guys, we're gonna take it after the meeting maybe, okay? Because we're over the 5.
Well, I asked my questions to the press so they could get more.
Okay, thanks Leo, thank you.
I'll yield.
Okay. Are there any other members of the, yes?
Yeah, John Schwabel, Hamilton Avenue in Leonardo. I also had a question about the discussion about the affordable housing amendment. I understand that you said that related to resolution 14-157, which you passed this evening. Yeah. That resolution is one of the two that is not on the webpage, so, you know, I can't see the
Wrote it about 3 hours ago.
I can't see the details of it. Is that gonna be on the webpage?
Yeah, we'll post it up there. There it is.
And you said that the restrictions are lifted, but you still get credit if you keep the restrictions. Does that mean that the restrictions would apply to the buyer that buys it after the
Yes,
current buyer?
correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing no other members of the public, I move us to close public portion and adjourn.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore. Committeeman Sal.
Yes.
Committeeman Chockerman. Deputy Mayor Spampino.
Yes.
Mayor Rose. Motion carries to adjourn.